The sharp sound of a door slamming echoed through the Domino's kitchen. "Order up." "Who's running delivery?" The manager, Greg, shouted over the noise. I wiped my hands on my already grease-stained uniform and grabbed the next ticket. $500 tip if delivered in under 20 minutes. My breath hitched. That was more than I made in an entire shift. "Yo, Maya, you taking this one?" Logan, the other driver, smirked. "Looks shady. Bet it's some prank." I didn't care. I needed the money. Badly. Stuffing the pizzas into the insulated bag, I bolted to my car and sped off. The address led to an upscale part of town, not the kind of place that usually ordered cheap pizza. As I pulled up to the towering mansion, doubt gnawed at me. I rang the doorbell. A deep, commanding voice called from inside. "Come in." What the? Nobody let a delivery driver walk in. But when a $500 tip was on the line, hesitation wasn't an option. I pushed open the heavy oak door and stepped inside. My sneakers squeaked against marble floors. Opulent chandeliers. A fireplace bigger than my entire bedroom. My throat tightened. Then I saw him. Dante Sinclair, the billionaire. His piercing gray eyes locked onto mine. He leaned against the grand staircase, sharp in an expensive suit. Yet his expression was unreadable. "You're Maya." His voice was smooth but firm. Yeah, pizza delivery." My heart hammered. He studied me, his gaze calculating. Then he smirked. "Perfect. You'll do." "Do what?" Before I could ask, he stepped closer. "How much do you make in a week?" The question threw me. Like, $400? His smirk deepened. "I'll pay you $50,000 to be my fiancée for one night." I nearly choked. $50,000? Dante Sinclair wanted me to pretend to be his fiancée? That's a joke, right? My voice wavered. "Do I look like I joke?" His eyes darkened. "Dinner. One night. Act the part. And you'll walk away with enough to change your life." My pulse pounded. 50 grand meant I could pay off Mom's medical bills. Get out of our rundown apartment. Stop drowning in debt. But something about this felt dangerous. "What's the catch?" I asked. Dante's smirk vanished. "No catch. Just play your role well." A tightness settled in my gut. This wasn't just dinner. There was something he wasn't telling me. But what choice did I have? I squared my shoulders. "Fine. But I want half up front." A flicker of surprise crossed his face before he let out a low chuckle. "Bold. I like that." He pulled out his phone. Within seconds, my bank app buzzed. $25,000 deposited. My breath hitched. This was real. Dante grabbed his coat. "Let's go, fiancé." The black Rolls-Royce glided through the city streets, taking me deeper into Dante's world. The farther we went, the more my stomach twisted. "Who am I supposed to be impressing?" I asked, gripping the leather seat. Dante adjusted his cuffs. "Business rivals." A room full of vultures waiting for me to slip. His tone was clipped, but his jaw was tight. Like this wasn't just about business. "Why me?" He turned his head, eyes locking onto mine. "Because you're real. They expect someone polished, desperate to impress. But you? They won't see you coming." His words sent a strange shiver down my spine. As the car pulled up to a high-rise hotel, I swallowed hard. This was it. Dante stepped out first, offering me his hand. The moment my fingers touched his, a jolt shot through me. His grip was strong, possessive. Cameras flashed. Reporters. Oh hell. Dante pulled me close, whispering against my ear, "Smile, sweetheart. The game begins now." The grand ballroom was filled with men in tailored suits and women draped in diamonds. I didn't belong here. Dante didn't falter. He walked in like he owned the world, his grip on my waist firm. He was putting on a show, and I was his leading lady. A man with cold, calculating eyes approached. "Dante, I didn't expect you to settle down." His voice dripped with venom. "Some things are worth surprising people for." Dante responded smoothly, tightening his grip on me. I played my part. Leaning in, I brushed my lips against Dante's cheek. His muscles tensed. The man's gaze sharpened. "And what does your fiancé do for a living?" Dante didn't hesitate. She owns a successful business. I nearly choked. Excuse me? The man smirked. Impressive. What kind of business? Dante's grip on me turned vice-like. This was a trap. Hospitality, I said, forcing a sweet smile. It's a small startup, but we're growing fast. Dante exhaled slowly, just enough for me to notice. I saved his lie. The man chuckled darkly. Well, let's hope she's worth the gamble, Sinclair. As he walked away, Dante finally released his grip. His eyes flicked to mine, something unreadable in them. Not bad, he murmured. My pulse was still racing. What the hell had I just walked into? The moment the man walked away, I turned to Dante, my voice low and sharp. You just made me a business owner. Are you trying to get me caught? Dante's lips curled into a smirk, but his eyes were unreadable. You handled it well. Now keep up. He guided me deeper into the sea of elites, weaving through conversations filled with fake smiles and hidden threats. I wasn't just pretending to be his fiancée. I was a pawn in a high-stakes game I didn't understand. The tension was thick in the air. Every pair of eyes that turned toward us was filled with speculation. People were watching, judging, waiting. Then I spotted her. A stunning woman in a blood-red dress stood across the room, eyes locked on Dante like a predator eyeing its prey. She tilted her head, a cruel smirk tugging at her lips. Who is that? I whispered. Dante stiffened. Someone who doesn't like losing. The woman strode toward us, heels clicking against the marble floor. Dante, she purred. I almost didn't believe the rumors. You? Engaged? Dante's grip on my waist tightened. Ava. The way he said her name sent a shiver through me. This woman was dangerous. Her gaze flicked to me, cold, calculating. She wasn't fooled. So, this is the woman who stole your heart? Ava mused, her lips curling in amusement. Funny. You always said you had no interest in love. Dante's jaw ticked. People change. Ava chuckled. Do they? She turned to me, her smile razor-sharp. Tell me, sweetheart, how did you and Dante meet? My breath caught. She was testing me. Dante's fingers pressed into my side. A silent warning. I forced a smile. It was fate. Ava arched a brow. Oh! I turned to Dante, my expression softening. Playing the part. I spilled coffee on him. Twice. The second time, he said I owed him dinner. I let out a small laugh. One dinner turned into 3, then into months, and here we are. Ava's smirk wavered. She wasn't expecting me to play along so well. Dante's eyes darkened with something unreadable. Approval? Amusement? Ava studied me a moment longer before humming. Enjoy your engagement, darling. If it lasts. She walked away, but her words clung to the air like a storm cloud. I turned to Dante. Who is she? He didn't answer. His expression was unreadable, but something told me Ava wasn't just an ex. She was something much worse. The night dragged on, every conversation feeling like a battle I wasn't trained for. By the time we left, I was exhausted. My feet ached, and my head throbbed from smiling too much. The car ride back was silent. Dante was deep in thought, his fingers tapping against his knee. Finally, he spoke. You did well. I scoffed. Oh, great. Glad I passed your little test. His gaze flicked to mine, unreadable. You weren't a test. You were a shield. Something cold settled in my chest. A shield against who? Dante exhaled, leaning back against the seat. Ava doesn't like losing. And tonight she lost. A chill ran down my spine. I wasn't just playing a role. I was stepping on a landmine. When we arrived back at his mansion, I was ready to collect my payment and run. But as I turned to leave, Dante caught my wrist. This isn't over. My heart pounded. What do you mean? The deal was one night. His grip tightened. Plans change. Something dark flickered in his eyes. And for the first time, I realized I was in way over my head. I barely slept that night. My brain wouldn't shut off. $50,000 was life-changing money. But was it worth this? Worth whatever mess Dante had pulled me into? Morning came too soon. I was still in my work uniform from the night before, standing awkwardly in Dante's massive living room. He entered, dressed sharp as always, but his eyes were darker than last night. "I need you for another night," I tensed. "That wasn't the deal." Dante smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. "The deal has changed." Anger bubbled up. "You can't just—" He held up his phone. A notification from my bank. Another $25,000 deposited. I swallowed hard. "You're in now, Maya." His voice was low. "Dangerous. Walk away, and you'll regret it." A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't just about a fake engagement anymore. I was playing a game I didn't know the rules to, and losing wasn't an option. My fingers clenched into fists. "You think money makes me your puppet?" Dante's smirk was gone. "No. I think it makes you smart enough to know when to listen." A part of me wanted to throw the money in his face. But $50,000 wasn't just money. It was survival. I exhaled sharply. "Fine. One more night. Then I'm out." Dante's eyes flickered with something unreadable, but he nodded. "Good choice." As I turned to leave, his voice stopped me. "And, Maya?" I glanced over my shoulder. "Stay close to me tonight. No matter what." Something about the way he said it sent a shiver through me. What the hell was I getting into? That evening, I was thrown into the fire again. This time, the event was even grander. An elite charity gala. Dante led me through the sea of wealthy socialites, his hand firm on my lower back. He was tense, different from last night. "What's wrong?" I whispered. He didn't answer. Then I saw her. Eva. She was across the room, locked in conversation with an older man in a sharp tuxedo. Something about him felt off. "Who's that?" I murmured. Dante's jaw tightened. "Richard Vaughn." I sucked in a breath. The billionaire who built an empire off of backroom deals and ruined lives. Eva leaned in close to Vaughn, whispering something that made him smirk. Then both their eyes flicked toward us. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just business rivalry. This was war. Dante grabbed my hand, leading me away. "Don't engage with either of them." "Too late." Ava's voice rang out. "Leaving so soon, darling?" We froze. Slowly, we turned. Ava approached, Vaughn beside her. The tension was suffocating. Vaughn smiled. "So, this is the woman who tamed the infamous Dante Sinclair?" His voice was smooth, but his eyes were sharp. Predatory. Dante's grip on my hand tightened. "She's none of your concern." Ava laughed, twirling her wine glass. "Oh, but she is." She turned to me. "You don't belong here, sweetheart. You're just another one of Dante's temporary distractions." Something snapped inside me. I stepped forward, eyes locking onto hers. "Funny. Last night, you were the one who looked like his distraction." Ava's smile vanished. Dante inhaled sharply, a flicker of amusement crossing his face. Vaughn, however, was watching me with unsettling interest. "That's quite a mouth you have," Vaughn mused. My skin crawled. Everything about this man screamed danger. Dante's voice was ice. "We're done here." He led me away, but I could still feel their eyes on us. Watching. Waiting. And for the first time I realized this wasn't just a game. This was survival. Back at the mansion, I paced the room. "Who the hell is Vaughn?" Dante sighed, loosening his tie. "A man who destroys everything he touches." My gut twisted. "And Ava?" His jaw clenched. "She's trying to hand me over to him on a silver platter." The air grew heavy. "Then why bring me into this?" I demanded. Dante's gaze darkened. "Because you're unexpected. Vaughn and Ava thrive on control. But you're a variable they can't predict." I swallowed hard. This was bigger than I thought. I turned for the door. "I'm done. Keep your money. I'm out." Dante's voice stopped me cold. "If you leave now, you'll regret it." I spun, anger flaring. "That a threat?" His expression was unreadable. "No. A fact." His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face turning to stone. Then he looked at me, his voice grim. "You don't have a choice anymore, Maya." My stomach dropped. What did he mean? Then my phone vibrated. A text. "Unknown number. You're in deep now, little girl. Walk away and you won't live to regret it." Ice flooded my veins. I lifted my eyes to Dante. What the hell have you done? My breath hitched as I reread the text. My hands shook, but I forced myself to stay composed. Panicking wouldn't help. I looked up at Dante. Who sent this? His expression remained unreadable, but his jaw ticked slightly. He knew. A warning, he said. From Vaughn. I swallowed hard. So what? If I leave, he'll come after me? Dante stepped closer, lowering his voice. He won't just come after you. He'll make sure you disappear. Cold fear slithered down my spine. I had walked into a trap I couldn't escape. This wasn't just about a fake engagement anymore. This was survival. My voice was barely above a whisper. What do I do? Dante studied me for a long moment, then his fingers brushed against my wrist. Not a comforting touch, more like an anchor. You stay by my side. No matter what, I should have run. I should have fought back. But the truth was, I was already too deep. The next morning, I woke up in Dante's mansion. A place that felt more like a prison now. His security was doubled. Men in black suits patrolled the property. I sat at the massive dining table, pushing food around my plate. I had no appetite, not when my life was hanging by a thread. Dante entered, dressed sharply as always, but his eyes were heavier than before. We have a meeting, he said. I tensed. With who? His gaze darkened. Ava. I slammed my fork down. You've got to be kidding me. He slid into the seat across from me. She has information, and she knows Vaughn better than anyone. I exhaled sharply. You trust her? His lips pressed into a thin line. No, but I trust that she doesn't want Vaughn to win. That wasn't comforting. But what choice did I have? Ava was waiting for us at a rooftop bar, looking every bit like a queen ruling her kingdom. She smiled as we approached, but it didn't reach her eyes. I see you're still alive, she mused, sipping her martini. I folded my arms. You disappointed? She chuckled. Not yet. Dante cut to the chase. What do you know? Ava sighed dramatically. Straight to business. No small talk. Dante's expression remained cold. He wasn't in the mood for games. Ava leaned in, her voice lowering. Vaughn doesn't just want to ruin you, Dante. He wants you dead. I froze. Dante didn't flinch. I figured. Ava sighed. You have a week. Maybe less. He's moving fast. My pulse pounded in my ears. Why tell us this? You could have let him take Dante out. Her smile turned razor sharp. Because if Vaughn wins, I lose too. Dante exhaled slowly. What's your price? Ava's eyes gleamed. When this is over, I want him ruined. Completely. Dante didn't even hesitate. Done. Ava smirked, swirling her drink. Then let the games begin. And just like that, we had an ally. Or another enemy waiting to strike. That night, I barely slept. Every creak, every whisper of wind had my nerves on edge. Then, around 3 a.m., I heard it. A soft click. I bolted upright just as the bedroom door creaked open. A shadow moved. Someone was inside. I lunged for the lamp, but a hand clamped over my mouth. My scream was muffled. You should have walked away, a voice whispered. Panic surged through me. This was it. But then a gunshot. The intruder slumped against me before collapsing to the floor. Blood pooled beneath him. My breath came in ragged gasps as I turned to the doorway. Dante stood there, gun in hand, his face stone cold. Looks like they started early. My hands trembled. He was going to... Dante strode forward, gripping my chin. His touch was firm, steady. Look at me. I forced my eyes to his. You're safe, he said. Promise. A warning. But I knew the truth. I would never be safe again. By morning, the entire mansion was in lockdown. Security tripled. Vaughn had sent his first warning, and we weren't going to wait for the next. Dante paced the study, phone pressed to his ear. His jaw was tight, his movements sharp. This wasn't just business, it was personal. When he hung up, he turned to me. We're going after him first. I blinked. What? Dante exhaled. We're done playing defense. This time Vaughn knows we're not running. A shiver ran down my spine. This wasn't the man I had met days ago. This was someone darker. And now, I was part of his war. The tension in the mansion was suffocating. Security guards lined the halls, their hands hovering over concealed weapons. This wasn't just a precaution. It was preparation for war. Dante stood at the head of the room, his presence commanding as he laid out the plan. "We hit Vaughn first," he said, his voice steel. "If we wait, he'll take the next shot. And the next one will be fatal." I sat stiffly on the couch, my heart pounding. How did I go from delivering pizza to planning a takedown of a billionaire criminal? "What exactly is your plan?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Dante's eyes flickered to me, something dark lurking beneath them. "We cut off his leverage. Make him vulnerable. Then we take him down." I swallowed. "And if it doesn't work?" Dante's smirk was cold. "Then we don't get a second chance." My stomach twisted. I wasn't just trapped in his world anymore. I was sinking deeper into it. The plan was insane, reckless. And yet, there I was, dressed in an evening gown, walking arm in arm with Dante into one of Vaughn's exclusive underground poker parties. "This is suicide," I muttered under my breath. Dante smirked, his grip on my waist firm. "Only if we lose." The room was filled with men who smelled of money and blood. Vaughn sat at the center of it all, his cold eyes gleaming as he spotted us. Well, he mused, sipping his drink. "Look who walked into the slaughterhouse." Dante slid into a chair across from him, pulling me onto his lap as if I were some prized possession. The display was for Vaughn, but I felt every muscle in Dante's body coiled tight. "I figured I'd give you a chance to settle this the civilized way," Dante said smoothly. Vaughn chuckled darkly. "There's nothing civilized about this, Sinclair. You should know that by now." My pulse pounded. Dante was playing a game where the stakes were life or death, and I was the wild card Vaughn hadn't accounted for. The poker game started, and it was brutal. Vaughn played like a man who owned the world, because he did. Dante met him play for play, but I could feel it. This wasn't about the cards. This was a battle of dominance. Then Vaughn looked at me. Really looked. He tapped his fingers against the table. "Tell me, girl, how much did Sinclair pay you to play house?" The room went silent. Dante's grip on my thigh tightened. A warning. Stay quiet. But I wasn't about to be silenced. I leaned forward, resting my chin on my hand. "Not nearly as much as he paid me to ruin you." The smirk vanished from Vaughn's face. Dante exhaled slowly, amusement flickering in his gaze. I had just put myself in the game, and Vaughn hated losing. The moment we left the poker game, Dante didn't speak. He was calculating, wheels turning in his mind. Finally, he smirked. "You just painted a target on your back." "Sweetheart." I folded my arms. "Like I didn't already have one?" Dante chuckled lowly, but there was something proud in his expression. "Vaughn won't let that slide," I muttered. "What now?" Dante's smirk faded. "Now, we make him bleed first." I should have been scared, but instead, I was ready. We didn't wait for Vaughn to strike. We struck first. Dante leaked information, false rumors about Vaughn's offshore accounts. It spread like wildfire, causing chaos in his inner circle. Then we hit his businesses, exposing corrupt deals that made even the most ruthless billionaires turn their backs on him. The walls were closing in, but Vaughn was far from finished. I found that out when I got the call. My mother's voice was shaky. "Maya, there's a man here asking about you." Ice flooded my veins. Vaughn had just changed the game. Dante's face was unreadable as I told him what happened. Then, in one swift motion, he grabbed his gun. "We end this," he said coldly. I should have been terrified. But at that moment, I wasn't afraid of Dante. I was afraid of what Vaughn would do next. And I knew this wasn't going to end without blood. The meeting was set. An abandoned warehouse. Midnight. Vaughn was waiting, his expression smug. "I knew you'd come." Dante stood tall, his gun drawn. "Let's settle this." The room was suffocating with tension. Then Vaughn smirked. "Tell me, Sinclair, do you really think she's loyal to you?" He flicked his gaze to me. "Because I can offer her something better." Dante's jaw clenched. He didn't look at me, And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just business. This was personal. Vaughn's offer was clear: betray Dante, and I'd be free. Dante didn't speak. He was waiting for my answer, and I gave it. I stepped closer to Dante. Go to hell, Vaughn. His smirk faded, and then chaos erupted. Gunfire rang out. I hit the ground, heart pounding as Dante's men returned fire. This wasn't a business war anymore. This was a battlefield. Dante moved like a man who had done this before. Precise, deadly. Vaughn's men fell one by one, and then it was just him. Dante stood over Vaughn, gun trained on him. Vaughn laughed, blood staining his lips. You think this ends with me? Dante didn't flinch. No, but you won't be around to see the rest. A single shot rang out. Vaughn was dead, and just like that, it was over. The war was won, but the scars remained. Dante stood on his balcony, staring at the city below. I joined him, my voice quiet. It's done. He exhaled slowly. For now. I swallowed. And us? His gaze met mine, unreadable. Then finally he spoke. You were never just a pawn, Maya. I felt it then, the shift, the weight of everything we had survived. And I knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Even with Vaughn gone, the weight of his existence still lingered in the air like a storm that had passed but left destruction in its wake. Dante didn't celebrate. There were no grand victories, no sighs of relief. Instead, he remained eerily quiet, his mind miles away as we stood on the balcony of his mansion. You don't seem like a man who just won, I murmured, watching him. His jaw tightened. Because I know better than to think this is over. A chill ran down my spine. Vaughn is dead. Dante. What else is there? His gray eyes flickered with something dark, something unresolved. He wasn't working alone. My stomach twisted. Of course he wasn't. Dante had information, evidence that Vaughn had been working under someone bigger, more dangerous. The text came in that night. Unknown number. You took down the wrong man, Sinclair. Now it's my turn to play. Dante stared at the screen, his expression cold, unreadable. But I could see it, the shift. The war wasn't over. It had just begun. I clenched my fists. Who is it? Dante turned to me, his voice calm but firm. A ghost. I swallowed. Meaning? He exhaled. Meaning no one knows his name. No one has ever seen his face. But he runs everything. A chill slithered down my spine. So what do we do? Dante smirked, but there was no humor in it. We hunt him first. The days that followed were a blur of tension, strategy, and preparation. Dante called in favors. His network stretched far beyond what I had imagined. Men in high places, people who owed him debts they could never repay. But our enemy? He was always one step ahead. It started with small attacks. Our allies disappeared. Businesses burned. Then, one night, the attack came directly to us. I woke up to the sound of shattering glass. Dante's security team was already engaged, gunfire erupting through the mansion. I bolted up, panic seizing my chest. We weren't ready. Dante grabbed my hand, pulling me behind him as he reached for his gun. His voice was calm, too calm. Stay behind me. I swallowed hard. Dante. He turned, eyes locking onto mine. I won't lose you, Maya. My breath hitched. Before I could respond, the door burst open, and the real war began. The fight was brutal. No more mind games. No more threats. This was survival. Dante moved like a man who had spent his life preparing for this moment. Every shot was precise, every movement calculated. But the enemy was relentless. By the time the gunfire stopped, bodies littered the floor. Dante exhaled. Blood splattered across his suit. And then a single voice rang out. Well done, Sinclair. A figure stepped forward. A man we had never seen before. But the moment Dante saw him, his entire body went rigid. I had never seen Dante Sinclair afraid. But in that moment, he was. The man smiled. You've been a thorn in my side for too long. Dante's grip on his gun tightened. You're supposed to be dead. The man chuckled. I've heard that before. I stood frozen, my pulse hammering. Who was he? Dante exhaled slowly. What do you want? The man's smirk was cold. To remind you that this isn't your world, Sinclair. It's mine. Then he turned to me. And you, Maya? His gaze was piercing. You don't belong in this war. My breath hitched, because I knew this wasn't over. Dante stepped in front of me, his voice firm. She's with me. The man smiled. Then let's see how long she survives. And just like that, the real war began.